Okay, boom! We should be on the Tru-Mon Show, live and direct on YouTube. Episode 135 with the great Lily Rose Day. How are you, Lily?
I'm doing great, Johnny. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's such an honor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
thanks.
pleasure for me. An honor always to have you on. Tonight, we're going to look at the great presentation that you've done. It's Amplitude Astrology. I watched it and I was very, I like that kind of stuff. I like the kind of stuff that explore astrology, but from not necessarily the traditional astrology, like it's more, you go in depth in many subjects also related to astrology and stuff. So tonight you're going to present us your presentation, and that's it. We're going to take questions after. So if people in the chat have questions, just post your questions and we'll try to answer them the best of our ability. The best of our ability. This is what we do all the time here. We're not coming here to like shove it down your throat. It's not about it. It's about love, wisdom, and understanding. That's what we all need. So, Lily, I'm going to let you go on with the presentation. We're not going to waste time. You can start now, and that's it. We'll watch that like a devoted student of the great mystery, like Lily says. I love that. I love that when she says that, and that's great. So, as devoted student, professional devoted student, we will listen to Lily very attentively. So that's it. We will be back. Rod is there already in the chat. That's good. So we're gonna start, and we'll see where it goes. Lily, I let you go with that.
All right, cool. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen then. I say desktop. Start screen share.
Greetings, good family. This is Lily Day, devoted student of the great mystery. So I'm super stoked because this presentation is going to be on Amplitude Astrology, and it's my first presentation on the topic. And so I'm really excited because it's something that I've been thinking about for a couple weeks. And there's a lot of information that I sort of pulled together and synthesized and integrated in order to make this happen. And so I'm excited to share. So thanks for watching this video and for hanging out. I think that you'll like this. So let me share my screen. No, I want to share that one. And then I want to go here and play. Okay, so Amplitude Astrology is a term that I think I coined, and it's based on the work of Santos Bonacci, but it's also very much related to the new understanding of the nature of reality that we are coming to terms with and encountering and understanding based on the work of Nassim Haramein. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of talk a little bit about his work and about the fractal holographic universe. And in order to just kind of give a context understanding for why we would need an amplitude astrology, or where this idea is coming from, right? And as I said, it's definitely springing straight from the work of Santos Bonacci. So also, I'm trying to make this accessible for all my friends and family and acquaintances who would like to watch this presentation. So that's another reason why I'm starting back at the beginning with the fractal holographic universe. So this is a complex topic, though. There are a lot of things sort of filtered that I'm pulling into that sort of have that are foundational in understanding where I came up with this idea for Amplitude astrology. So I went ahead and made an outline for what I'm going to talk about. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the idea of a first premise and what metaphysics is. And then I'm going to talk about the fractal holographic universe. I'm going to talk about the flow of energy, consciousness, and information on the torus and how that looks on a toroidal field. I'm going to talk about Santos Bonacci's work on syncretism, especially with regard to the 3-in-1, electricity, and the zodiacal sine wave. I'm going to talk about the science of the stars and the view of the zodiac or the zodiacal wave from its own side. I'm going to talk about the camera obscura and Dan Winter's work on phase conjugation. I'm going to talk about the healing power of the longitudinal wave. I'm going to do a quick review of Drunvalo Melchizedek's work and the Merkaba meditation, just because we're going to need to tie that back in to the work as well. And then I'm going to talk about a phase conjugated birth chart and the pith instruction of polarity points. And then finally, I'm going to talk about an esoteric understanding of the zodiacal sine wave. So maybe grab a cup of tea if you want to hit pause. Let's get started. Okay, so this is Terence McKenna, who is definitely a hero or anti-hero. So we have to stop consuming our culture, create your own roadshow. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. And I know, as most of us are, make art, not war. So this is a great intro set. So let's go for it.
Doesn't it seem more
No. Sorry. Sorry. It worked the first time.
some techniques, chemistry, approaches, so forth and so on. I'm approaching this evening as a graduate seminar. I figure everybody has their little mojo kit and their particular way of approaching these things. And then the question is, what kind of conclusions can we draw? And the conclusion I draw is, and this is sort of pulling together what I said before, we are central to the human drama and to the drama of nature and process on this planet. The opposition, which is science, well, first let me say this. Every model of the universe has a hard swallow. What I mean by a hard swallow is a place where the argument cannot hide the fact that there's something slightly fishy about it. The hard swallow built into science is this business about the Big Bang. Now let's give this a little attention here. This is the notion that the universe, for no reason, sprang from nothing in a single instant. Well, now before we dissect this notion, notice that this is the limit test for credulity. Whether you believe this or not, notice that it is not possible to conceive of something more unlikely or less likely to be believed. I mean, I defy anyone. It's just the limit case for unlikelihood that the universe would spring from nothing in a single instant for no reason. I mean, if you believe that, my family has a bridge across the Hudson River that will give you a lease option for $5. It makes no sense. It is, in fact, no different than saying, and God said, let there be light. And what these philosophers of science are saying is, give us one free miracle, and we will roll from that point forward, from the birth of time to the crack of doom. Just one free miracle. And then it will all unravel according to natural law and these bizarre equations which nobody can understand but which are so holy in this enterprise. Well, I say then, if science gets one free miracle, then everybody gets one free miracle. And I perceive that it is true when you build these large-scale cosmogonic theories that you have to have a kind of an umbilical cord or a point to start from that is different from all other points in the system. So if we have to have a singularity in our modeling of what reality is, let's make it as modest and as unlikely a singularity as possible. The singularity that arises for no reason in absolutely empty space instantly is the least likely of all singularities. Doesn't it seem more likely, if we have to have a singularity, that it occurs in a domain with a rich history, with many causal streams feeding into the situation that nurtures the complexity? In other
Okay, so that's what's called a preset in academics, which is like an introduction of some of the thoughts that you want fronted, or the schema that people will be working with when you do your main lesson. And so the first premise, right? And that's what, in other talks, that's what he ends up calling it. And I think that's a really, I mean, it's funny, it's totally philosophy, academic terms, but it's pretty funny, right? The first premise, right? Like, how often do we forget the first premise? How often are we walking around Walmart, like looking for razors and forgetting the first premise, right? Like, what am I doing here? And I say that because I was actually sitting in the Walmart parking lot the other day, and it occurred to me to remember the first premise, and I just looked around and started laughing, because we take this show so seriously, right? And it's like, I'll remember, and then 10 minutes later I've forgotten and I'm ensconced in it again, right? It's like, but we take it so seriously and we forget the first premise, right? Which is, what is going on here, right? How did I get here? How did the world get here? And so what Terence McKenna is saying here, and you see that Rupert Sheldrake, who is a scientist who works with Richard Tarnas, like their buddies, is quoting Terence McKenna. So this is a thought. This little rap that Terence gives here is something that a lot of people listen to and find it's funny, right? But he says, Rupert Sheldrake is repeating it and saying, it's like science says, give me one free miracle and we can do the rest, right? And the Big Bang is that miracle, right? So we do have a star student in this story, whereas a lot of people listened to this rap and laughed and thought about it and were like, yeah. And you heard how Terence said the opposition, right? Science. But Nassim Haramein is a star student because he seemed to bring these two sides back together as they should be, right? And now Nassim stood on the shoulders of giants in order to finish, and he finished a lot of things that were already started. And he was also in really good company. There's a whole host of physicists who were sort of in the sacred geometry school. But Nassim is definitely the star student. He takes that role. He owns that role well, right? He's super cute, and we all like Nassim. Everybody likes him. He's funny. And so we have this picture here of the day science met spirituality, right? So Nassim Haramein, though he was in good company, he is the person who defined the fractal holographic universe and the unified field theory, right? He is the one who lived in the school bus and self-taught himself physics and came up with the answer to what Terence McKenna is saying, and found this nurturing context for the singularity, right? And where the singularity didn't just pop up in an instant, or where it had these causes and conditions that surround it and help it to spring forward and fold back in, right? And so I just wanted to, like, for some people that might not be aware of what metaphysics is, I'm a student of religious studies, so that's a term that got tossed around quite a bit: ontology, cosmology, metaphysics. But metaphysics is the study of the fundamental nature of reality. You notice physics is a part of the word metaphysics, right? And so, of course, this is where science and spirituality should meet, is in metaphysics. It's the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, space. So there you go, first principles. It's like the first premise, right? So I just wanted to spend a little time, not too much, talking and defining what the fractal holographic universe is, because it sounds really complex and it's not really so. It's accessible for sure. And all of this information, until I say Mother May I, or till I let you know, is all from the hollowfractal.net. It's an introduction by Andreas Bierve. And this guy's genius. He did a great job. So there is no need to repeat and reverbify what he did. He wrote it great, and it's super accessible. So I was going to just jump to that page, but I found I pulled out certain sentences, so it's easier to just repeat them so that my eye can go to them more quickly. So the fractal holographic universe is a geometric understanding of reality, and thus represents a divergence from the assumption of the universe composed of subatomic particles towards a recognition of nature's underlying patterns. So we know that particles are nothing more than a frozen freeze frame moment of a wave, right? There are no such things as particles. There are waves, and then if you freeze frame moment it, you see a particle. And so that's why the truth of impermanence, right? That's why everything is constantly in flux, because everything's a wave that's moving constantly. And so the fractal holographic universe, it's a paradigm shift, right? We're not looking for the tiniest, smallest God particle anymore. We're recognizing that every particle that you see is a representation of the whole. And like the whole is there in that tiny particle. And what fractal means is that it's a never-ending pattern, and fractals are infinitely complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales. That's a really fancy way of just saying that, like, the entire ocean in a drop, like each drop is the entire ocean. It's and holographic means that the whole is represented within all points within a certain system. In a holographic photography, information about the whole object is stored at every point of the holographic plate by means of light-based interference patterns. So basically, a fractal means that the pattern is repeating. Like one is small and the next one a little bit bigger, but they're the same thing. Okay, like a cell, like your entire DNA is present in one tiny cell, but your whole body is a picture of that too, right? And in the same way, we are one cell in a larger body, right? And like you'll see fractal patterns on a lot of things, like they call like dendritic fractals, where you have a tree stump and then you have the dendrites branching off. Our brain looks like that too, but you'll notice like that the dendrite patterns look self-similar. And then also like on cauliflower, that really pretty cauliflower, that, one little piece, it like some of the little spikes will be smaller and some larger, but they're self-similar patterns. That's fractal. Holographic is it's sort of like Indra's net, or interdependence, or one tiny drop, the entire ocean in one tiny drop, right? That's holographic. So continuing with the text, a basic premise in our exploration is that reality is a fractal holographic phenomenon that arises in the synergetic interplay between dynamical and absolute energy. Don't worry, I'm going to explain that. Through a fractal holographic model, we describe the synergetic interactions between these and between dynamic and absolute energy, and how cosmological and existential principles result in a continuous creation process at all levels of being. Okay, so it's saying how dynamic energy and absolute energy interact in a synergistic way in order to continuously create the arising of phenomena in reality. And another thing to note, and this is gonna be foundational moving forward, is that consciousness, energy, and information are synonyms. Okay, they're used interchangeably. So energy is consciousness. Energy is information, right? So there's no difference between the energy, the chi, the prana, and consciousness. And so for the planet's wisdom traditions, as Andreas says, this has been a basic premise for thousands of years. Consciousness and energy are one. Okay, so moving on, we're just going to quickly define what dynamic energy is. And this is, again, all from Andreas Bierve, the Holofractal Net introduction. So dynamic energy equals the reality of our everyday life. Everything we sense, think, and feel is fluidly dynamic energy. And this energy is perpetually in a state of expansion or contraction. We can understand the geometry of this flow as a torus, wherein information is circulated and recycled and absorbed and radiated in a continuous feedback loop. In a fractal holographic universe, this self-reflective dynamic is the foundation of all information processing, perception, and conscious experience. The torus is visible in all independently organized energy systems in the universe, from atoms to galaxies to humans, and represent energy in its dynamic aspect. So we all have a torus. Like, we all move with this energetic flow. And this is like a view from the inside of the torus and how the energy spins up and around and cycles back in a continuous feedback loop, right? And it's my understanding is that the human body has two toruses, one coming from the heart and two interlocking counter-rotating toruses, one from the heart and one from the head. And then, but like you can see a torus, they show it on an apple, you show it on the earth. I'm going to show some pictures of the torus in 2 slides from now. So, but I was just pointing out, as Andreas said, that that everything has a torus, right? This is the energy field. Like, it's not just solid. Like, there's a moving interdynamic energy field swirling around everything. Absolute energy, by contrast, is the vacuum, the 0 point, or simply the singularity. There's that word again. That's what Terence McKenna was talking about. So the singularity is the absolute energy. Now, this is mathematical calculations indicate that the absolute energy possesses an inexhaustible energy potential. Like, it's the black hole, right? It's like infinitely dense. We may understand the singularity in a metaphysical sense as infinity itself in the state of total balance, or as undifferentiated consciousness. Like, this is like Advaita Vedanta, non-dual dielectricity. This is Nirmanakaya, right? Or is it Dharmakaya? It's the one that's like absolutely everything. This is the Ein Sof, absolute energy. Even though it's everywhere, it remains invisible to us, much like water to the fish in the ocean. We may understand this equilibrium geometrically as the vector equilibrium, and a stable geometry of omnidirectional balance. So remember that. So you hear vector equilibrium a lot. This is what it is. It's absolute energy, right? It's the 0 point. It is I'm going to show you where it is, but it's that point on the torus right before it expands into the Aries energy. This is the vector equilibrium. This is absolute energy. This is non-dual dielectricity. And here's a quote from Buckminster Fuller. The vector equilibrium is the 0 point for all happenings or non-happenings. It's the empty theater and the empty circus, an empty universe ready to accommodate any act and any audience. I'm reminded of the Buddhists who kind of talk about emptiness, and they talk about how it's pregnant with potential, right? It's not really empty. It's like pregnant with potential, but it hasn't happened yet. It's like the state of right before happening, right? So that's absolute energy. Here are some pictures of toroidal fields for people who may or may not know what they look like already. So there are views from the inside, there's views from the outside. there's one surrounding the earth, and you can kind of see this one has two on the human body. I'm used to seeing it kind of differently in Dremdor Melchizedek's work, but the universal topology of the space-time is understood to be a double rotating torus, which is expanding and contracting on itself endlessly, right? So, and then I defined topology, that was from Andreas, but I defined topology as the study of geometric properties and spatial relations. So it's like saying that space and time are geometrically and spatially related in a torus relationship, like, you know, so space and time, that's like everything, right? And notice these two stacked up on top of each other. I'm going to bring that up later about how to get two of them stacked on the head of a pin when we start talking about Dan Winter's work and translating transverse waves into longitudinal waves. And so that's that image, but I copied it again for you. So, okay, particles and waves. This is a famous quote from Nikola Tesla, which probably everybody's heard, which is, if you want to find out the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So this is just showing in picture form that waves and particles, you know, a particle is a freeze frame moment of a wave, which is an important concept because the next thing we're going to talk about, boom, are the two kinds of waves, okay? So we have transverse waves and we have longitudinal waves. Now, transverse waves are the waves that probably you're used to seeing, right? They go up and down like this, like a sine wave. They're light waves, electromagnetic waves, microwaves. They have crests and troughs, and they travel perpendicular to source, and they move up and down. Longitudinal waves, on the other hand, are like a slinky. You know, like they kind of move like this, parallel to source. They compress and extend, compress and rarefy. So compressions and rarefactions. And those are like sound waves and like seismic waves. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 3-in-1. Now, the 3-in-1 is a concept that it is familiar and to all forms of esotericism and mysticism. Like you will find the 3-in-1 and the concept of working with that in every version of religion, spirituality, etc. Because it's foundational to the understanding of reality, right? Like, and so this picture here on the left is from a YouTube video that Dan Winter did with this guy, Paul Harris, on alchemy. And he brought up this chart, which I thought was phenomenal. And he was like, as you think of things that are 3-in-1, put them in your chart. And so he is talking about alchemy, sulfur, mercury, and salt. However, for me, as a student of religious studies, like I'm thinking like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? And also the 3 jewels in Buddhism, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the 3 kayas, the Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is the one that's the absolute energy. And the Sambhogakaya is like the light realm. That's where the Dakinis and the Buddhas are like the rainbow realm. And then the Nirmanakaya is everything we perceive around us, right? So I went to a talk by Matt Kahn a couple of years ago, and he was talking about the 3-in-1. He didn't say it like 3-in-1. I'm not sure exactly what he said. It's been a while. But he was using the words, I am that am I, right? And he was talking about how, you know, like 2 moments ago you weren't that. Right now, I am that I am I, you know. And he was talking about how I think it was sort of along the lines of how the worst student can become the best student within like a matter of minutes, like it's just intention. And I think it was along those lines, or at least that's how I took it, but that's a Buddhist teaching. Anyway, I was also thinking about the trilogy, right? We've got Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi. Aleister Crowley definitely makes use of this, and he talks about the ace, the king and the queen, right? So that's the Keter, Chokmah, and Binah, and so that the king and the queen get together, and that's wisdom and understanding. They get together and they make the prince and princess, and the princess goes down to the bottom of the tree of life, and the prince is up at number 4, right? And so it's trying to get the tarot reads like trying to get the princess back up the tree of life, right? And the 4 suits. So there's like the ace, the king, and the queen. And it's very interesting, right? So he's making use of the 3-in-1 there that way. There's enlightenment, wisdom, and compassion. So the idea of the 3-in-1 is foundational to esotericism and mysticism, the mystical understanding. So therefore, it's definitely foundational to astrotheology, and especially in Amplitude astrology, where we're talking about astrophysics and light and electricity, and kind of trying to translate that into an astrological model. And here we have Santos Bonacci, who I have so much adoration for. So here we go. This has been recent teachings by Santos when he was working with Jonique and Rob, I believe, was sitting in on this. What up, guys? I hope you guys are watching this. Anyway, so we have Santos was talking about dielectric, magnetic, and electricity, right? That's the 3-in-1, dielectric, magnetic, electric. So light, basically we're talking about light here. And light splits into polarity twice. First, it splits into the polarity of black light and white light, dielectric and magnetic. And then it further shifts into another polarity of white light, and then red shift, blue shift, right? So black light and white light are both longitudinal waves. Black light is dielectric, longitudinal, scalar wave. It's absolute energy, inertia, ether. It's masculine. It's what God is, okay? Neutron, dielectric, anti-field, and lux. White light is also a longitudinal wave. I think it's absolute energy, but I put those ones in there. And I'm not 100% sure because it seems like it's just on the brink of dynamic energy. But it's acceleration, force, and motion. Feminine, it's air and fire. It transmits thoughts, emotion, and sound. It's kinetic energy. White light is what God does. Black light is what God is. White light is what God does. Illumination. It's the proton when it's expanding. It's magnetism, and it's the field. So dielectric is the anti-field. Magnetic is the field. And then red shift, blue shift is the field modality. It's the transverse wave. It's dynamic energy for sure. I was sure about that. It's androgynous because it's both positive and negative, male and female. It's water and earth. It's kinetic energy of sensation and action. It's the electron when it's compressing, and it's the field modality. So all of that is from Santos Bonacci, and he's been teaching that very much recently. Oh, and it's also Israel, okay? And you can see here the picture of it on the Taurus, right? And he's talking about all of this on a toroidal field. And here's the yin and yang, dielectricity and magnetism, and red shift, blue shift, right? Okay, and oh, I think I threw this in like 4 times in this presentation. There's the donuts. Okay, so Santos Bonacci also teaching the zodiacal sine wave. Okay, so here is where we begin to see astrology coming into this new understanding of the fractal holographic universe. This is big, right? And you know, Santos Bonacci is so busy teaching so many things. I'm not sure how clear it is that what's happening here, what he's drawing out here, and it. You know, and it's basically, I'm going to show later that it's also very much already written in the Light of Egypt, which was from the late or early 1800s. I can't remember what half of the century it was in, but it was the 1800s. And so this is not new information. However, it might be new that it's coming into the public understanding rather than being hidden in the Masonic temples or wherever it was hidden. So this is straight from the teachings of Santos Bonacci, where he teaches that that the sine waves moves like this, and this, and it's first is Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Like, okay, so basically, like, he's showing us in this Ken Wheeler video, and I put the link down here, where you know, Ken Wheeler is showing he's actually moving a sine wave, like he's moving a magnetic. He's able to project this so that you can see it, right? He's figured out a way to make it visible, the wave as it comes out. And the Aries is the impulse of sentience. It's like when sentience bursts through from absolute to dynamic energy, the first flavor that it takes on is Aries. The next flavor that it takes on is Taurus. Every time, every wave. So waves have the characteristic of breaking through the absolute energy. I want to call that the event horizon so bad, but I don't know if that's right. Like, I am not truly a physicist. I'm a religious studies student. In fact, physics was really hard for me, but I think I had a bad teacher, because obviously it's not that hard for me. But every time that a wave breaks through that horizon point, it's flavored Aries, and then and it's followed by Taurus, then Gemini, Cancer, Leo. Then it hits back at the, it makes this path every time. It has that flavor every time. And so, I mean, this is why this is so important that we're bringing this knowledge all together, because it's not only the fractal holographic universe. It's not only that and the understanding of how gravity spins in with the golden ratio and all of that. It's also zodiacal. Like, there's also astrology here. That's why it's called astrophysics. Okay, and so all cycles begin with Aries, but all sentience begins with Aries, but all cycles also begin with Aries. Like, the astrological new year begins at the vernal equinox with the Aries ingress. There are 12 months in a year, like there are one for each of these. So the year follows this cycle. The moon every 2.5 days switches into these cycles, right? Every 2 hours. So this is 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., and it follows like this, right? Now, that was a real trip to me, and I'm still wondering, like, is it when you wake up or when the sun rises? And could we, like, kind of craft our Aries moment each day by, like, oh man, I want to wake up in Aquarius every day, like with Aquarius on the rising, Sometimes I think I'd be getting up at like 1 a.m., but at some times of the year. But also the yugas, or the precession of the equinoxes, also follow this cycle, right? That one's backwards. So we're in Pisces and we're moving into the Aquarian age. We'll see what that looks like. I'm going to talk about it backwards, so it's interesting. Okay, excuse me. So the next thing I want to talk about is that this is from the Light and Science of Egypt. And so Thomas Burgoyne is talking about the 4 directions, and he's talking about the triplicities, and he's talking about the fiery triplicity, the earthly triplicity, the airy triplicity, and the water triplicity. And he's talking about how they line up with the 4 corners of the earth, so that the fire is in the east, and the earth is in the north, and air is in the west, and water's in the south, right? And you can pause this and read this, or you can just get the book, which I highly recommend. But he says, in order to obtain a celestial application of the above, the points must be reversed. North becomes south, east becomes west, and so on. So I found that really interesting. And then he and I scratched my head and I made a note of it, and I kind of diagrammed it, and I moved forward. And then later he starts talking about the house system, and how the house system is reversed from the side of spirit. In revealing this mystery, we would impress upon the mind of the student that the order of the zodiac is the reverse of the external in its spiritual application. The first angle is the ascendant on the eastern horizon, symbolized by Aries. The south angle, or meridian, or 10th house, is symbolized by Cancer, which is usually Capricorn. And the 7th house is Libra, and the 4th angle, the nadir, the point opposite the MC, which is usually Capricorn, is now the opposite 4th house is now Capricorn. So I was like, wow, that is crazy. Observe the order of the zodiac is reversed upon the external human plane. But Aries is always symbolical of the first angle, and Libra the 7th, being the point of equilibriums, while the 10th or south angle becomes Capricorn and the 4th Cancer. So now he's talking about the way that we're used to seeing it, the red way. So I drew it out, and I was just kind of using the way Santos Bonacci draws the sine wave, and I drew it opposite, and I drew it according to his words, and it phase conjugated like this. And I was like, wow, that is cool. And so I had already, because I asked Santos Bonacci about this, I had already sort of been steered toward Dan Winter's work, and I started seeing the word phase conjugation everywhere, right? Because that's how spirit works. In teaching the great mystery, right? We can rely on spirit to guide us, because it definitely will. Okay, so here we go. So the first thing I saw from Dan Winter was the Camera Obscura, which this is an awesome talk about John Dee, who was even cooler than I already knew. I knew he was cool, because I named my cat after him, but I knew he was the astrologer to the queen, which I made the Leo King my astrologer for a little while until I learned how to be an astrologer myself. And I used to call him my court astrologer. But now, and you know what? You can still rely on the Leo King. He's awesome. There are so many awesome astrologers, though. But anyway, here we go. I'm sort of thinking about how other people are going to react to that statement, but I'm going with it. Okay, so the first thing I noticed here was, let me describe what a camera obscura is. So it's an optical technique that uses a dark room and a small hole to the outside. Okay, so basically what it is like, you can see here on the bottom, there's this building that says camera obscura, and it looks like it's from the 50s. And then on the left side here, you see on the inside, all these people gathered around, and they're looking at an image from the outside, projected inside. Now, I'm not sure how they turned it back around, not upside down, because traditionally, and what really happens is that you can see on the top here, like this bottom picture, that if you have a dark room and a tiny small little hole, and the light on the outside will reflect in, and it will make an image of what's outside on the inside projected upside down, right? And John Dee apparently did this in this like house, and like he was able to make it like in this like super like esoteric like occult fiction house, but it was really true, where like the water would project over the fire, and he was able to mix all the elements and do a bunch of really cool artistic stuff in this building. So, but I noticed right away in this picture from Dan Winter's thing that the eye does that, right? Our eyeballs do that. I've heard that before, how the image is upside down and inside my eye. And so, you know, it makes a lot of sense that that from the spiritual side, that the zodiac would be reversed, right? Like this concept makes a lot of sense. And also, I just want to point out these vector equilibrium bow ties, because right there in the very middle where the two triangles meet, that is the small hole, right? And one is one way and one is the other way. And so that's the vector equilibrium. We remember that definition from the beginning, which is the absolute and the point of absolute energy, the balanced point of absolute energy. So that's the camera obscura. And camera obscura is like the basis of photography, right? They've known about this for a long time. They used to build them in little boxes, and then the painters would paint the image, right? It gave you an upside down image to paint. Okay, so phase conjugation is the physical transformation of a wave field that results, where the resulting field has a reversed propagation direction but keeps its amplitudes and phases, a process that involves the use of nonlinear optical effects to precisely reverse the direction of propagation of each wave plane in an arbitrary beam of light, thereby causing the return beam to exactly retrace the path of the incident beam. So, basically, it's like the perfect echo. That's a word from Dan Winter, but like he talks about how immortality is the perfect echo, and about how like the test of a perfect shaman or Sufi was to be Sufi, I think he said, was to be able to make the perfect echo, and that's a perfect phase conjugation, right? It's the wave, it's the mirror image of the wave. And you can see like in the bottom picture here where we have one wave is going this way and the other one's going that way. And what does that make? Boom, 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 boom. Longitudinal waves. So phase conjugated waves make longitudinal waves. Phase conjugation is originally and classically understood in the optics literature. You take pairs of laser beams and you make them go in opposite directions, and if they meet and conjugate at the center, then they phase conjugate, right? These are all words from Dan Winter. I took them straight from his website or transcribed them from his talks. Dan Winter has often suggested that the best way to visualize how wave fronts meet to phase conjugate is to visualize pine cones learning to kiss noses. And that's this picture here on the left. Now, this really confused me until I figured out that this is a picture of the torus field turned in a different direction. Like everything we're looking at is like 2D pictures, but this is sort of like more of a 3D angle of it. So it's just that this is the plane of inertia here, and this is the spin of each of those circles, right? And so the pine cones are merely a metaphor for what apparently are opposing vortices that learn how to stand on the head of a pen, head of convergence. Now here we go. Here's the important thing. Now imagine what it takes for the brain waves inside of your head to get aligned this way in order to produce the implosive focus we know is the hallmark of deep spiritual perception and psychokinesis. We shall see in a later blog using brainwave measures exactly how this is quantified by applying the golden ratio. So the brain waves in your head, one's alpha and one's beta, that you get those to rotate and phase conjugate, rotate in opposite directions at a golden mean spiral. Does that sound familiar? Does it sound like the Merkaba meditation? Because it is, right? Like totally all fits together. So the Flame and Mind research, the right and left hemispheres spiraling in the golden ratio, the alpha and beta, and that's how you 180 degrees out of phase, which means opposite directions, is how you make longitudinal waves out of your brain and start the process of moving your attention onto the long wave or the longitudinal wave. Now, I will also say that hysteresis is also classically understood in the optics literature. So that's a term I've been working with for quite some time now and trying to understand what it means, because it was given to me in a mystery school classroom in a dream. And I figured out some of the things it means, and I have another video about that. But here I'm starting to see where it also really fits into this, because if you don't have the proper hysteresis margin, then your waves will not phase conjugate and you won't be able to translate it to the long wave, right? Which is the key to psychokinesis, which what he's saying there is that because this phase conjugate golden ratio thing is his definition of gravity, right? Like this is what is causing, this is the cause of gravity. This is gravity. It means that this is what causes density, right? This is what causes things to become manifest. So the things that we think appear in our reality because we are in a phase conjugate relationship with it. However, as we will see, it's very related to pure intention. Like you can't just be a total mean guy and be horrible. I guess maybe you can, because there are some warlocks out there and some Illuminati people that are manifesting pretty potently. But Dan Winter suggests that it has to do with pure intention, and that you need to have a shareable wave. Here we see this idea where I was visualizing about how like it's the torus turned. And so on the left here is my cursor working. No, it didn't work on this page. But you see Dan Winter's picture of these green cones, right? This is the picture he's working with. There's another one like that underneath. But then you see here on the far right, those yellow cones, like that's on a toroidal field. And then you can see even Santos Bonacci sort of has these cones, these circles and the lines, you know. So it's just another way of looking at it, right? It's the same energy spiraling into that 0 point of the, it's spiraling into that 0 point. Okay, so longitudinal waves. This is a picture of Dan Winter if you haven't seen him before. And so scalar waves are the same thing as longitudinal waves, and they're called Tesla waves because guess who discovered them? Nikola Tesla. They travel faster than the speed of light, which means they're superluminal. They're not electromagnetic. They're composed of pure 0 point energy and have the potential to be used as a power source. Very cool, right? These are just descriptive words, adjectives that Dan Winter came up with for longitudinal waves. Mind of God, presence of the collective mind, deep spiritual perception, psychokinesis, fractal, conjugate space of perfected charge distribution, communion of saints, ancestor voices, collective unconscious. It's where all of that resides. That's from Dan Winter. And then Santos Bonacci said, my heart is connected to your heart longitudinally. Everything is. This is how we're connected to God, to the angels, to the archangels, to all energy is connected here longitudinally. Here, there is no time dilation. This is the forever now. That's a perfect definition, right? The kind of wave, longitudinal, which measurably allows mind to make a flame at a distance, contains deep lessons, not only in how to focus your mind, but also the real holy grail key to plasma fusion and alchemy. This is important stuff, right? This is the key to alchemy. It's the longitudinal waves that made from phase conjugation that do all the magic healing. So they're doing research with longitudinal waves and healing cancer, and they're having great success. So this guy Bearden has stated that the longitudinal EM waves can have a healing effect because they always come in pairs called phase conjugate pairs. And one pair is time reversed. So they're able to sort of reverse the time of the cell and take it back to a healthy state. And I was also going to say that shamatha, which is calm abiding meditation, means resting sort of in this longitudinal space, right? And they say that all siddhi comes from shamatha, like all powers, all meditational prowess comes from shamatha, right? That's why they push shamatha. The point that I'm making here, just to tie it back into the astrology, is that we have the one astrological sine wave that we're so used to seeing, but there's this other phase conjugate pair, and that together that they make a longitudinal wave. And that's why it's so important. And that these longitudinal waves are really potent and powerful, right? This is where the magic's at. And so it's important for us to think about, well, what does my phase conjugated birth chart look like, and how does that work, right? So it's important to learn how to translate your attention to the long wave. And it's like, how do you do that? You know, Dan Winter's wondering that, like, how do I transfer my attention down? And he says, you transfer your attention down the cone of this spiral, and it goes down and it hits the longitudinal wavefront, right? So your attention is the place where the donut converges. There's that picture I keep bringing in. And when the donuts converge correctly, they make a plasma vortex, which is called implosive. And it's called phase conjugate. Optical phase conjugation is the mechanism of perception. So basically what he's saying is that when those donuts converge properly, when the hysteresis margin is phase conjugate golden mean, then it creates an implosive place, like a phase conjugate. It's the optimal translation of vorticity, I think is what he called it. And so then so if it comes and hits it at that, then it translates to the longitudinal wave, right? So if the donuts converge correctly, so if the donuts meet that hysteresis margin correctly, if they're in a golden mean relationship and spiraling correctly, attention is the conjugate point. So your attention, the now moment, is that point on the torus that begins to make rarefy to make Aries, and how you convert transverse to compressed longitudinal wave. That's the magic. You travel the rotational wave down a spiral on a cone, so that when the transverse component goes down the spiral on the cone, it emerges without having lost inertia, and it's called optimized translation of vorticity. It's how you define golden spiral if you're teaching hydrodynamics. So that translates the transverse wave down the spiral on the cone to the longitudinal. These are all Dan Winter's words. As a wave proceeds inward on the cone, in order to create only constructive wave interference, the sine waves must converge in golden ratio proportions. Boom, Merkaba meditation. Yeah, and here we are, Merkaba meditation. So this is just a quick reminder, because this is already a very long video and I've already done a lot of work on this. But you can see that that the blue shift spins one way and the red shift spins the other way, compression and rarefication, and they phase conjugate in a golden mean ratio, right? One spinning 34, one spinning 21. Even if you have different ratios, because some do 8 and 5, etc., they're still golden ratio. It's interesting to note that Dan Winter is saying 7 and 5, which I'm not being able to make the correspondence with Drembalo Melchizedek's work in that, and I haven't figured that out yet, why he's saying 7 and 5, but it looked Mayan. Interesting. Maybe we can get the answer to that. Okay, so hysteresis, just a quick reminder that, like, hysteresis is the lag time and the swing time that particle traveling the wave takes in order before it flips to the opposite charge. So if it's traveling the ellipse, like, eventually it's going to have to, from rarefication to compression, what's that swing time that it takes to flip that? And if the swing time is too long, then it creates this big fat hysteresis margin at the bottom. If the swing time is quick and nimble, then it has this narrow hysteresis margin. The narrow hysteresis margin is great for amplification and broadcasting without chatter, and tapping into the collective mind, right? And broadcasting, it's the shareable wave. But the the fatter hysteresis margin is great for recording. So if you want to make a mixtape, you're going to want the fat hysteresis margin, but it's also good for recording karma in the alaya, which is definitely propagates the illusion of samsara and keeps us hooked to the wheel of samsara and is not quickening our process to enlightenment. So what we want is a narrow hysteresis margin. And the way to achieve that is to have all the phases really tuned and working, which are the chakras, right? So in order to juice the motor of the induction motor, alternating current induction motor of our light body, we need to have all of the phases working at optimal clarity. I don't know. So it was interesting though, because Dan Winter talks about having a shareable wave, and he talks about how this is the pure intention thing. And I'm just going to read this quote. I think it's the best way to go. What does it mean to say that you treat everything as sacred? Basically what you're saying is that you're seeing the relationship to one fundamental ground in everything, so that every time the wind of charge travels through something, there will be more wind of charge travel through it if you see it in relationship to the communion of saints, to the communion of charge, which is at the plasma center of all ground. I would call that Planck, but Kundalini Yogi would probably call it lightning, or maybe the thunder that arrives. So it's basically that you're establishing your relationship to the plasma center of all waves. And when you see that relationship to everything, whether it's pain or joy, suddenly you're in phase lock with the ground. And Arthur could call the sword from the stone, because the stone knew that if it shared its plasma, its ground, its charge with that shaman, that there would be a direction in which you could go down the wormhole and connect with all of charge. So that's the thing, it's like it's a shareable wave. Like, it has to trust you. You have to be shareable. Like, if you're self-serving, that's not shareable, because it's like, why would that stone why would it want to be, go with you if it's not connected to everything, right? So, that's sort of part of the purity and of intention, right? And then he also talks about this reverse grass fire algorithm, and that's when waves bounce at the boundary condition, and when they come back, if the symmetry tree is a conjugator of golden mean, then they can return to center non-destructively. So if you're in the middle of the rose, your attention goes out and comes back, and your inertia is not completed. The inertia of your attention can grow and not be depleted. So here's the thing, that if you send out a wave that's not shareable, when it hits the boundary condition and bounces back, like that hysteresis margin it's going to be too fat. And when it comes in, it's going to be imploded and destroyed when it hits the center again. And it's not gonna, but if you do have a shareable wave, then it goes out, it comes back, and it goes out, and it comes back, and it starts cycling. And it's like breathing in a didgeridoo, right? And you're like growing your energy instead of spending your energy. And so the question is, do we have a shareable wave? And the answer is based on our purity of intentions. That's physics. That was I wrote that, but yeah, right. This is all Dan Winter, at least these big quotes down here. Okay, so this is just again showing that, you can see here on the zodiacal phase conjugated sine wave that the blue one is spinning, we're spinning that outwards 34, while the red one we're spinning in 21, right? And one's going counterclockwise and one's going clockwise, and one's red shifting into reality, one's blue shifting back up to spirit, right? And the ratio at which we do that, we can see 34 to 21. This is weaving together Drunvalo Melchizedek's work, Dan Winter, and Santos Bonacci. Boom. And so then I realized, however, that probably it looks more like this, and this is how you'll see Santos Bonacci actually draw it. So that green point right there, that in the very center, that is the absolute energy. That's the vector equilibrium, and it spins out to Aries, back up and around, and then this is the phase conjugated one. And then you see, here's the coolest thing in the slideshow. Oh, Amplitude astrology. And so I have a phase conjugated version of my birth chart put on the other side. And so you can see how this would really look, right? And so you notice, like, I have a third house sun in my real it's not, the cursor's not working. So on the one on the right, straight up Pisces, 18 degrees, third house sun. So in the phase conjugated birth chart, I also have a third house sun, right? So how is that different is the question. But the difference is in the understanding of the house system. So third house in the external understanding is Gemini, right? So I have a third house sun in Gemini. My Gemini is Pisces flavored, right? The way I do Gemini is Pisces, and my sun's there. In the phase conjugated birth chart, the third house is Aquarius. So going backwards, the way I do Aquarius on the return path is Piscean, has a Piscean flavor, and my sun's there. So we can see, much like Jeffrey Wolf Green did polarity points with Pluto, that we can definitely, I know that this isn't going to work, we can definitely do phase conjugated polarity points and derive pith instruction for our own path and how to return to spirit, and how to, work on the alchemical process of the magnum opus with phase conjugated birth charts. It's just going to take a little bit of work, like working out how to do it. But I know, but that's my next step, is to sort of actually read my phase conjugated birth chart and sort of derive the pith instruction and then be able to translate that for other people. Cool, right? So cool. Okay, so understanding the zodiac. So this is from, I promised this to a friend of mine that I would explain the esoteric understanding of the zodiac. Now, this is from the Light and Science of Egypt. And I love this picture because you can see the picture is mirror image. Isn't that cool? This is an alchemical picture with those like star tetrahedron. Like all of this is known knowledge in esotericism. It's just unknown to the gypsy class. So, or it's now becoming very known to the gypsy class, because here we go with my gypsy heart going to explain it to you. So Aries is the point where the divine Godhead separates and to know itself, right? It's the birth of the divine ego. When it meets Taurus, it's the beginning of sensation, and it senses that it's all good, right? It's like, it surprises itself. It's like, whoa, and it's all good. Gemini is where that divine becoming splits into two forms, male and female. This is the red shift, blue shift, and they sort of cleave to each other, and they're a little scared, and they're like, whoa, what just happened? We became two. They're two separate but mutually dependent forces, reason and intuition. But this is the dawn of desire, aspiration, and longing, right? Because now that there's two, they want to know more. So in Cancer, it's where that it's equalizing in harmony between these two, and it says it's all good, like everything is all good. This is the glorious subjective summit in the realm of spirit. So this is like the Garden of Eden, right? It's all good, but it's purely subjective, and it doesn't know through an objective material sense. So spirit has to descend into the form of matter. But before that happens, this is a blissful rest in the Garden of Eden. And then Leo is where spirit like gets to growl of courage, and with its thinking with its heart instead of its head, it jumps and makes the ultimate sacrifice, which is to leave the Garden of Eden, and has a deathless courage to do that. And it does that in order to get to gain knowledge and learn about itself and to evolve its latent forces. And from this moment also divine sympathy is born, which ultimately redeems the soul and purifies it and saves it from a death in matter. So the soul is going to jump down into matter, but because of the divine love and sympathy, it will ascend back up again, and it won't die there. Virgo is where this Virgo realizes what Leo did and is like, oh my gosh, well, you were thinking with your heart, not your head, and realizes the sacrifice that Leo's made and feels really sorry for Leo. And there's a lot of compassion, and it's the beginning of love, the divine love and pity, and reflects, but it also sees how good it's going to be. Like it sees the potential of what can be achieved down there in the material world. And so, although, it's like worried. So Virgo, right? Libra is the bridge between the spiritual and astral world. It's ideal conceptions and elemental forms. Instantly, the spirit awakens from a spiritual state into the illusions of matter, right? And the celestial state now has to be regained through suffering and trials and sorrow. So that's Libra. And then in Scorpio, the soul is no longer dual. It suddenly wakes up and it's naked and hungry and cold. And it's like entry into the elemental conditions and like animal passions and blind forces of nature. And the soul's creation, this is fascinating. The soul's creations must be met and vanquished upon the upward arc of the cycle of progress. They guard or oppose the way to eternal life. Yeah, that is the way it is, isn't it? The soul gains victory and is purified and sanctified and joins with its other half, and they partake of the tree of life and become gods. So that's Scorpio in the shadow realms. Okay, Sagittarius is the vortex of innumerable opposites. It's like the Tower of Babel. All the information is scattered to the four corners, and the soul has to make the journey of collecting all the pieces and information. It's like the soul full drawn back, like the bow and arrow, and ready to let it fly, right? So it knows what it's aiming for, but it's got to make the journey and get all the information. Capricorn is like the dark night of the soul. This is rock bottom. This is the inertia. But in that rock bottom, dark night of the soul, there is like a spark or a glimmer of hope. And the soul knows what to do, right? And it's like from that moment, it gains the grit to ascend. And so in Aquarius, it begins making the ascension, and it learns of its latent powers, and it learns sort of like the occult arts, and it learns how to make the ascension, and it gains the knowledge that it needs in order to do that, right? And then in Pisces, it's like meets the imaginative waters of transcendence, and it's a rest state, because it actually then has to make the journey back. So we can talk about that. So we just talked about the journey there, but here at the Aries, then it's going to travel the blue path. And from Aries, it's like it gets to know its own individual ego, right? It's like the purified ego, the persona. And the persona then goes to the imaginative waters and imagines what's possible. And from the primordial realms of imaginative waters, it draws up the schema and the plan of how it's going to ascend, right? And then in Aquarius, it gets the Merkaba vehicle going and gets the vehicle on the road. And then in Capricorn, it has the grit, and the work does the hard work to make the ascension, right? Capricorn is determined to do the work. And so it starts to really like dig in and do the work, right? Like I'm working right now, like we're working hard, right? And Sagittarius is like gathering all the puzzle pieces from the four corners and bringing them all together. And in Scorpio, we integrate the shadow, right? And probably, I don't know yet, but probably join together with our anima or animus and our divine partner. And then together we become married into one in Libra, and the heart is weighed. And if we pass the test, then Virgo cleans us up and gets us ready, and makes over us and mothers us and gets us cleaned up and ready for the celebration party in Leo, right? Where we get put up on the throne and we get our regal crown and we get crowned king and queen of the alchemical marriage, right? Like I guess Libra's the alchemical marriage, and Virgo cleans us up, and then Leo gets us, we're crowned king and queen, and there's like a great party in the sunshine, right? It's beautiful and super fun. And Cancer is where there's it's sort of like the emotional reprieve, right? It's like back to the mother's breast, and like, just rest. And it's like the good sleep after all of this, right? And the good sleep in the God realm, And then in Gemini, the two become one again, and they fuse back together. And then in Taurus, we sense it, and we say, it was good. And then in Aries, it folds all back into the divine Godhead. And that is the zodiacal understanding, the esoteric understanding of the zodiacal sine waves, the zodiacal waves, both from the external and from the spiritual side. And so, Terence McKenna, this is funny. Whatever this thing is, it keeps to itself. I've literally had the experience on Mushroom of saying to it, show me what you are for yourself. Well, there's like this enormous organ cord, and the temperature falls back, and black velvet curtains are raised. And after about 20 seconds of that, I'm saying, that's enough of what you are for yourself. Let's go back to the dancing mice. So what I mean is that our journey through time, our historical journey to this moment, has not been unaccompanied. We have always been accompanied by this thing, the demiurgos. Some people just throw down their cards and call it God and be done with it. I'm not ready for that, because I don't think it's the God who hung the stars like the lamps in heaven, as Milton said. It's not that God. If it is a God, it's the God of biology. And I don't have any problem with that. And I think it's funny that he gave this talk at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine. But you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms. And hopefully, have fun while you're doing it. Speaking of having fun while you're doing it, these are some friends and people who have inspired me over the past couple of weeks. Speaking of having fun while you're doing it, there's Theories in the bottom corner. This is a skateboarding crew that's based out of New York, and they have awesome designs. If you're into metaphysics and spirit science and stuff, you'll love Theories. And I had a great run-in with them again this week, continuing to prove to be awesome people over there at Theories. Right above that is Stovilla Elohim Ra. He's another student of Santos Bonacci, and we have connected recently over Facebook and have been mutually admiring each other's work and personas, and I would definitely recommend checking him out. He's a super light. Over here, right next to it, Kes Zero Gravity. This sister contacted me this week, and she's making some awesome online audiobooks for YouTube. They're freely available about ascension process, about all the spiritual sciences, and she's super into the Merkaba, and she used my Merkaba meditation where I did it to 8-count beats and made it into a rap, like electronica kind of thing with beats behind it, which was super cool. Thank you, Kes. That's awesome. And I think it could be awesome, even more awesome if we do it on purpose, but it was super awesome as it is. And I'm so honored, and I think we should all check out Kes's work because she's doing some great work for the team. Up above at the very top, that's a picture of Dan Winter. I liked that picture. So yeah, definitely check out Dan Winter's work. Papa Smurf. That's what I've been calling him because he's so smart, like Papa Smurf, and I feel like Smurfette being oh, Papa Smurf, because I don't quite understand and I have to play it 5 times. Joss Sun, who is the guy Janique introduced me to, who's a reggae artist who's super conscious, and I love this album, The New Paradigm. There's a flower of life on it. If you hit that link, you'll go right to that song, The New Paradigm, and you will be dancing before the video's over for sure. And okay, this is Seja Popham, who is a herbologist kind of guy. He does spagyrics, and he's a student of Judith Hill, who I also someday hope to say I'm a student of Judith Hill because she's brilliant and she lives near me. And she is a Renaissance astrologer and a medical astrologer. And I'm super into that. And I want to learn how to do sound healing with longitudinal waves. But Seja is prescribing medicines and spagyrics made of herbs. And this kid is super lifted and awesome. Definitely check him out. I'm inspired by him for sure. And Janique, of course, Janique's the guy whose star is rising and he's grabbing everybody he can around him and saying, come with me, and pulling everybody up with him. Thanks, Janique. You're a great friend. I'm so happy to have you on my team. And Santos Bonacci, of course, in the bottom, who the amount that I have learned from this man in just such a short amount of time is really mind-blowing. So thank you, Santos Bonacci, for teaching us on the web for free, like all these teachings available for free. But, you know, all of these guys, I'm sure, could use a donation if anyone has the means to do so. And with that said, I think that's it. Let's see, stop share. So I love you guys. Thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys again sometime soon. Until then, let's see if I can remember them all. Be a good family, be kind, find the others, and make art, not war. Love you guys. Bye.
Okay, let's
Wow. Boom.
Okay, so-
Ah, we're back.
Yeah, let me get this. Okay, unscreen shared.
Wow.
Did I do it?
No, I could listen to this, Lily, 25 times in a row. I don't think it would be enough.
Oh, thank you. Is it
That's-
still screen share?
No, I think it's good now. That's what I commented in the chat. David passed a comment and said, "Oh, I know all this already." Hey, he said, "Bro, I can listen to this 25 times and I don't think it would be enough." You know, it's like the ball Earth. I've been repeating. It's been repeated to me for so many years that it became part of my reality at one point. I kind of accepted it I never fell for it. It's not because we fall for it and dive into it. It's not that. It's just we don't question it. We're very, very numb to reality, and we don't question things. So if you don't question it, you're never gonna find things there for sure.
Yeah,
So,
that's so true.
Been writing stuff during your presentation.
Nice. Thanks, Janique. Thanks everybody for hanging out and watching it. That was cool. I had a couple moments where I had kind of forgotten how moving it could be for me to watch it. So thanks. Yeah.
You're very, very smart, and I think that's what everybody acknowledged too. I saw all kinds of comments in the chat, and you're very smartly. You speak with you speak with integrity. You speak with integrity, and that's what I get from you. You know, it's very real. There's nothing fake here. So yeah, so you start with two great teachers. You start with Nassim Haramein, a guy that I've looked up so much at the beginning of my quest of truth or knowing what's going on here, discovering the lies or stuff. But Nassim's been a very a turning point in my research for sure, because it's him that talks a lot about the vector equilibrium. I hear him talking about this a lot. And I left Nassim at one point because I don't know the space stuff, because he was still into space things and the Earth being round and stuff. And like at one point when he started saying that stuff was coming out from the sun, you know, from black holes from the sun and traveling through the sun to another he lost me there. That's where he lost me. I gave up, but I always respect him a lot because he's a star student, like you say. But his reality, what he teaches now, I mean, I haven't looked at him in a long time, but I've been looking at his stuff, and a great teacher for sure. But like, I just don't buy the stuff with the sun and you know, there's a few things but we all have something to bring to one another, whether he believes in that there's people traveling through the sun or not. But what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, I think it's that way for a lot of the teachers that have been around for a while, right? The understanding of the flat Earth is just beginning to make it through the teachings, right? It's sort of new, and so it hasn't been incorporated fully. And on that note, it's also somewhat controversial. And there's a lot of people who have taken this movement as an identity marker and are out there just like wearing it as a t-shirt and fighting about it. And it's like, it's really just harmful to the movement, honestly, because you know, there's a truth that we're trying to communicate to help empower people, but then they hear all of this fighting first, and they're not even able to entertain entertain the subject. So my feeling about this, though, is that, I'll listen also to Drunvalo Melchizedek talk, and he does the same thing. He's talking about, planets far away, and like this viewpoint, this worldview that is, I'm starting to understand it differently. But he hasn't made that jump yet. And if he has, he's not bringing it out publicly because of the controversy, right? I mean, this is what I think is I think it's more, though, that we just haven't incorporated it into all of our language and all of our understanding. Like, it hasn't filtered its way through yet. Does that make sense?
I don't think people like are there to like control the position or stuff like that. The same like David Icke. I just maybe didn't explore, but David has wrote so many books too. I don't know if he will ever come out and say that the Earth is possibly not a ball, or we don't know really what it is. Like me, a picture of the Earth, I'll get outside and I'll take you a picture of the Earth. I cannot tell you what it is. I've never seen it. I'm on it, but I've never seen the whole thing. So we don't tell you what the Earth is. We don't know, but we know they're lying. We know they're lying. It's evident. It's a self-evident thing. Just look around. But maybe people haven't get to that questioning part of their journey yet. I am there in questioning reality, but it's because at one point I wanted to find out about Babylon and stuff, and that brought me to many different teachers. But for sure, Nassim was one of them. There's many great teachers. But yeah, we're all on a journey, and wherever we are doesn't really matter because we're all returning home. That's what I say all the time. We're returning home. So the path that Nassim is taking, or the path that I'm taking, or you're taking, we're all returning home. So eventually Nassim will probably come out and say, hey, listen.
Well, you got to think for him too. It's easier for you and I to say, oh yeah, we're with it. But for someone like Nassim Haramein, like if he comes out and starts saying that, like his entire catalog, his entire research, like everything could be debunked in like 1 second. Like if he gets on the wrong side of that argument, like it's kind of like how in academia, like they're not always serving truth in academia. They're serving what's it called when you become a tenured professor, right? Like that's why like I could never make it in academia, because I'm always looking into these topics that are not, it's not politically correct to research, right? Because there are certain, and so Nassim, like he's already done a lot for us, like he really has done a lot for the team. And for him to come out and start saying that, it's like really a lot more risky, although it could be a great boon to the movement for him to back it. But at the same time, like that's asking a lot.
Yeah, and he has a lot of people also involved with him. Like he has a big research institute in Hawaii. Like there's many people in this. To get up one day and say the Earth is probably flat or not a ball, everybody would look at him and say, "Hey, Nassim, what's going on with you?" Like
right.
that's the thing also. So
and like how much would it help and how might it actually hurt? Like what we're trying to do as the people who are wise and with wisdom is to help bring people along, like the Bodhisattva way, help everybody to come along. But like if you come out with something that's further than they're willing to go, then you alienate them, right? So he like, what are they saying behind closed doors? If I sit and have tea with Nassim Haramein, like what might we talk about? Might be a little bit different than the publicity what we're getting, right?
okay,
so I have full faith in his his thing. Like he seems like a bright light to me.
Oh yeah, he's bright light. I always liked him. He's very funny too. I like his
totally.
And I like when he speak on stage. Like I've listened to many of his talk. He's the one I've learned a lot from him too. How to speak in front of people and stuff like that. I've watched him many times, and no, for sure, great man. Also, you talk about Santos for sure. We cannot forget Santos. Santos will be back on the Tru-Mon show sometime in June. We
Nice.
gonna make something happen again. But yeah, you have learned a lot from Santos Bonacci, as what you seems to say.
Oh yeah, like, and I remember when I first came on and started watching, you and Rob, and I was immediately, captivated, entertained, and having fun watching the show. And all these questions sort of started to arise for me. Now, I found my way there because I subscribed to Santos, right, with an interest in astrology. But what I never thought I was going to find was a way to connect all of my interests into one modality, right? And I immediately started emailing you questions like, like thinking about this, right? Like, and they were pretty out there and kind of advanced and whatever. And like, I was able to ask Santos a couple questions, which sort of helped me figure out like what was going on. And by the end, I was sort of able to put it together. But like, even in the first day, I sort of get psychic impressions, and I was thinking reflection. Like that was one of the things that I think I was asking you. I was like, how is it like a DNA helix? Like there's something going on there, And so like, it just took a while to put it all together. Yeah, I mean, was there something specific that people wanted to know about Santos, or?
No. I just wanted to know your point of view on Santos, what he brought to you as a student, as a devoted student.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you find an authentic teacher, they say that you're supposed to offer a flower, right? Like a single blossom. And it's representative of offering the flower-filled world, right? And for an authentic teacher, it's usually a prerequisite. Like you have to do that. And the thing is because you're sort of surrendering what you gain from it to the project of awakening, right? It's like symbolic of saying that. And I mean, I really feel very strongly that Santos is an authentic teacher. And because what I gain from him is not what's coming out in the words. There's so much more. And it's like a transmission almost that I receive from him. And so it's just really phenomenal and such a great, I want to say blessing, but you say no. You've taught me a few things. I was noticing in the presentation how many times I said "boom," and I was laughing.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I like it. I was smiling every time you were saying it, and every time I see people on YouTube too doing boom or stuff, I'm like, wow, that's great. It's a good energy. It's just a good energy. Boom, we start, and hey, we're here. Wake up, people. That's what I have in head all the time. And also, you bring in another great man, Terence McKenna. Wow, right? What a man, eh? And his first premise, and I like the way that he says that, because we actually right now believe something that is most likely not possible to happen, like a big bang, and so I like the way he says it. That I don't have his quote in the head, but that's a bit what he's saying.
Yeah. Terence McKenna is so smart. You listen to him talk, and I'm like taking notes and writing down books to read because he seems to have had a very classical education, right? That's something like I went to public school. It wasn't something that I had, but he seemed to really get that, right? And so he is a great resource in that way. And then also just like, I mean, I was listening to another talk by him recently, and he was talking about the paradigm shift. And he just nailed it so perfectly, like like how it would play out in the age of Aquarius. And it was so early, for him to be saying that. It's just really interesting. He's so smart. And and he's talking about being in the parking lot in Esalen, right? And I just I've been to Esalen. Like I didn't get to, of course, go to a workshop, but I volunteered at a Zen place and for the summer, and it was right across the river from Esalen. That was the closest I got. But there's a lot of the counterculture movement that is like the top thinkers are meeting at places like that and discussing these things that, and it's just really interesting to hear Terence McKenna bring it out and then listen to it in retrospect. Yeah. And see how it's moved through the consciousness since, the first ideas.
Yeah. Another thing you're bringing on, it's star student. I really like the I think you came out with this. No, does it come from you, star student? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of a poetic in that way. Like that's one of my gifts, and so yeah, that was from me.
So what is a star student for you?
I mean, it has a lot of levels, right? Well, I mean, the star student is something like, you'd get a gold star on your paper, right? Like you would be the one that got the gold star. But then there's also the idea of he's, a student of the stars, right? We're talking about astrology, right? So he's a star student in that way. But then there's also the idea of the Merkaba vehicle, and Nassim Haramein is one who's definitely got his vehicle up and running and is creating and offering energy to the collective consciousness to bring it up. Like he's got his art dialed in. And so he's a star student in that way, as are many of us. right?
Good, great. Devoted, the devoted star student. Yeah, for
Divine.
sure.
Yeah, we should change it.
We're definitely devoted. Definitely devoted. Another thing you talk about is the 3-in-1. And
Yeah,
that I
right.
found it very interesting. I'm going to reread your stuff that was written because you have to pause it also.
Hmm.
But tell me a little bit more about this, the 3-in-1.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is like the nature of reality, right? So, I mean, it goes all the way back to in Christianity, so you could really ground it in that sort of tradition for people who aren't, that's probably not this audience, but people who aren't wanting to go outside of it as much. But I mean, this is a fundamental concept in religious studies, and it's because of the nature of reality, right? There's the absolute, and then it's the light realm, and then it becomes the form realm, and then it travels back in the same and the three phases again, so yeah, just like I was saying, it's definitely foundational to all religions. I really noticed it studying Buddhism because they have a number of things that are divided by the three, and they really bring it out, right? They tell you very overtly about the 3-in-1 and about the three realms, and the way that reality flowers and blossoms phenomenal reality, the illusion blossoms from nothing, from emptiness, right? And so they talk about that coming, and it's also a process of where our spirit might incarnate at there are different, it's, I'm having a little bit of trouble straddling new understandings with traditional understandings, especially coming from Buddhism, and so, but within any system, there are problems, for sure. If it's a system, we've got problems. But within any system, there are some really bright lights that are teaching it true, right? And so I've had some teachers that are definitely teaching it true, like they are not misleading me. And so yeah, so the Sambhogakaya realm is the realm of the Dakinis, right? So this is the realm of the lights, the astral influences. Now we can put like an anthropomorphic like concept onto it, like it's a Dakini, right? Like it's like a man, like it has a man sense, or we could just call it light, right? But this is the moving realm that affects the physical, right? But it's also a resource to us. Like it helps us to move our situations. We can call upon it and say, talk to me, reach out to me, I need help. Like, right? Like it's the intercessor between absolute and the physical reality. So I like to believe it's ensouled, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it's definitely ensouled. Like, and so, yeah, I mean, I feel like it is because
Yeah,
it speaks to me. So
that's it. You feel it. It's something you feel.
yeah.
Uh, the other thing you're talking about, and I found very interesting, is the time you rise and shine in the morning. You
Right.
could decide. You could decide, like, okay, today I'm waking up in Aquarius. I'm waking up in July.
Yeah,
Can
that
this
was
be determined? With the moon and stuff. You were talking about the moon in
right.
there.
Yeah, like we need to ask Santos that, like what he thinks about that, because I think he would be the one who could tell us, because that was one of the questions I had for him when he taught it and taught the hours of the day. But it seems to me also that you could plan to put planets in houses. Like, so, you have the daily chart, but then that also fits on your chart. So, like if you wanted to say right now the sun's in Gemini, and for some reason I needed to have a day where I was like really on my game mentally, then I would want to wake up with that sun in my third house, right? Like if you could like play with it like that, like there's
Yeah.
lots of, I mean, that's a fun speculation. It's going to start to get a little too woo woo for traditional astrology, which this presentation in its entirety is probably that way. So, but there are boundaries even for me. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think you
for
could
sure.
do it. Like it seems like it, and I tried it when Aquarius was in the rising, and I liked that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what someone was saying. Hey, someone said Aquarius. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
that's it. Another thing you talk about is the camera obscura.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. Tell me a little bit more
Right.
about that. What you research on this and what
Yeah.
came out of it, and
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I didn't know that you could do that. Like that if you put a little hole in a dark room, that it would show. But like, it seems to me like this is what we're dealing with. Like, obviously, like my body and the external reality are somehow we're one, right? Like one's me and one's a reflection, and it's just the same thing as those two cones. And that absolute point in the middle is like this filter in my brain, right? And so, like, I mean, it's just, you could get really deep with it, right? But I mean, in the physical sense, you know, you could have this black room and put a hole, and then you can have the reflection. But to me, it seems like you could take it much deeper by thinking, there is nothing outside of me, right? Like in some sense, I mean, we're all drops that exist in an ocean, but like I am the whole ocean. And so like there's some sort of filter here going on, and there's a hole in my brain that's letting part of the light in upside down, you know, and it's just like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, that's where I kind of went with it. But I would suggest definitely watching that video of Dan Winter. I mean, Dan Winter's work is so confusing, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you've watched much of it, but boy, I mean, you really have to watch, you really have to attend to what he's saying, okay? Because it's very complex. And he also does this thing where he gets really super hyped, right? And he'll excite himself, and he's explaining something very difficult, like complex, and then he'll jump to the next topic without fully explaining it, you know? And you're like, wait, I needed the rest of that sentence, right? And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend watching that, because I'm no expert on it. But it was just like I was trying to understand why spirit would be like the view from the side of spirit would be upside down. And then I saw that, and I was thinking about it like my eye, and I was like, of course, the one of us has it upside down, me or spirit, you know? So, because there's only one of us here, you know, so one side of it, you know, anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. It was kind of
it
a
makes
lot of
sense.
talking around saying, I'm not really sure.
Anyway, if it doesn't make sense now, it will make sense later. Maybe sometimes it take a little bit of time to integrate something, and then you go in nature and you see the same manifestation. Hey,
Right.
that's
Right. Yeah,
sometimes
you got
that
to
happened
think
to me.
about it. And also I have Mercury in Aquarius, which means that like for me, like I'm not great on the spot. Like I'm the kind of person that like I have to step back away from people and kind of get my hermitage around me, and then I'm able to process and communicate. Like that's sort of like a requisite for me. I'm not a group learner. So it's interesting, you know, in that way. So maybe later I'll also think about it and be like, oh yeah, I should have said it. We all do that, but I should have said it this way. But yeah.
For sure, the experience we're having now probably gonna change in 5 years, in 2 days, in 3 days. You know, we're
Right.
evolving in this journey, and we're ascending. So we're not descending, we're ascending. So for sure, our awareness is expanding also. So everything's gonna fall into place or rise into place. Everything's gonna rise into place. Very
That's
easy.
right.
The other thing I found very interesting is the echoes. You talk about echo
Yeah.
and the waves and stuff, and right away I thought about the thunder. You know what we hear in the sky, and that makes a huge echo when it resonates. So I don't know if you can tell me more about that. What
Mm.
what's happening with that phenomenon? Like, have you ever thought about it? Like hearing the thunder and it really resonates and echo for a while.
Right. That was a really good thought, right? Like I didn't
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah, and it's interesting because the thunder follows the lightning,
Yeah,
right? So it's connected to the light, right? And it's like the echo
that's it.
of the light. Wow, that's like really deep. Yeah, we should definitely explore that more. I mean, yeah, I mean Dan Winter was the one who said the perfect echo is the phase conjugated wave, you know, so the thunder in some sense. But you know, I'm really playing with these ideas of sound healing, right? And you know, because you and I both have the same thing going on. Like I came from a love of music and dancing, and how that made my soul feel to forget all my thoughts and just like fall into the music and rest there and rise there and be just, I learned so much from that, you know. And I know that's my communion, you know, that's communion. um and so, and I know that's a healing presence. um but it's interesting. So it's interesting to me to try to, think about like, how do we take that into the esoteric studies of, occult knowledge, and the work that we were asked to do when we came and incarnated on this planet, was more than just to dance in the bliss body, right? There's more to it. There's a little more to it for sure, and so it's interesting though to go back to these ideas about music and how to use music to help bring a soul along, right? And so definitely thunder and lightning are like natural music.
Exact.
Yeah. And
So I find that very interesting. Maybe you can like deep dive a little bit more deeper into it, and when we get together next time, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk to you about, and I put up a comment in the chat during the presentation. It's a Skull and Bones. Okay, it's a secret society. One of the where many. It's in the United States, somewhere near Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. But Skull and Bones, they have 322 as numerology and on their thing. What's special with the 22nd of March? Because 22nd of March. What is special on that date with astrology? What's going on the 22nd of March?
I feel like immediately I wanted to say it was like the vernal. It's not the vernal. It's like, but the 21st is always, like for the summer solstice and the winter solstice are both on the 21st, but the equinox, was it? I mean, maybe it was. Maybe that was the Aries ingress, and that would make a lot of sense if it is. Like I could probably pull up my.
Someone says the Ram Aries. That was his comment.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that if that's what they're saying, that's the Ram, the Aries ingress. And it's definitely not April 1st, even though it was celebrated sort of like April Fool's Day, but it was before then. So it's got to be the vernal equinox, which is like, it's exactly what Santos is talking about. The wave begins, the zodiacal year begins at that moment, right? So they know the magic of that. It's interesting to notice, though, that the Tibetans, who I consider to be like esoteric wizards, they celebrate the new year like the moon cycle before that ingress. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1. It depends on how the moon falls. But the reason is because they're so like practical, like, right? Like they keep their own death in mind all the time. They're like always like doing like they work very hard. They work very hard at this. And so they're so prepared that what they do is they begin the year by making preparations and so that they're ready to go for that Aries ingress, right? So that, so there's something to understanding where it is, but then there's something to also being really prepared for it to happen,
Exactly.
So
I
would be
prepared, so.
So that's interesting, though, that Skull and Bones, I mean, I'm not surprised at all. That's the one that like George Bush was in. It's like attached to their school or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's it. The Bushes went there and everything there. They all have one secret society or another, but there's a bunch of them. Not only Skull and Bones, but Skull and Bones is one of them, and it's pretty big one. There's one of the ones we hear about, but also I'm sure there's secret ones we don't hear about.
Oh, right.
That's for sure. There is some secret societies in this world. I'm sure what we hear and what we see on YouTube, I'm sure there's other stuff than that. Just like there's more lands, there's more stuff hidden. We can think for 1 minute that we they're very, very secret, and that at the time they were called secret societies because they were kept secret. But at one point, people started talking about it, so I'm sure they have developed something else that they're very, very.
Sure.
I don't have words to truly describe them, but evil can fit to their agenda. It doesn't fit really to their persona. But it's to their persona, but not to what they are, because they are not evil people. Like it's just their state of mind that is evil, because everybody is love. We all love something. Even the worst psychopath in the world loves something. So, we're just very, very twisted mind, and that's why we have the world we have. That's it. That's the way I see it. But you don't have anybody don't have
Yeah.
to agree with everything
I
I
mean,
say.
I think we've talked about it before. I think the difference is that people like you and I, we use these sciences to get this power going, where we offer the power to empower other people. Like any power we get, we use to empower other people. But people in those sort of secret societies use the same knowledge to oppress other people and keep them in the dark from the knowledge, so they don't get at the power themselves, and they take that power for themselves and build it up, for themselves,
Yeah,
which
and
is
that's why I say the Santos is a great teacher, because what Santos Bonacci gave me, he gave me lots of teaching, but you know what he gave me the most?
hmm,
The strength. That's what Santos
yeah,
gave me. The
yeah,
strength to carry on. Because
yeah,
if
me
he's
too.
listening
Yeah.
tonight, that's what you gave me, Santos, the strength to carry on, and because it's not easy to burn what Babylon says. When you go against Babylon, it's never easy, because the most of the people believe everything Babylon will teach them. So me, I've always been very rebel or marginal or something. I felt something was not totally right with this world, but anyway, Santos came along and gave me a lot of strength to, especially at the beginning. That was crucial in my especially on the Tru-Mon show. You can see him in early episode on the Tru-Mon show, and really it was a great push forward for me. And I'm sure he knew that. He said, I need to give him strength. He's a good boy. I need to push him.
Oh.
He needs to get on track with his stuff. So but he came at the right moment on my journey for sure. I give thanks for Santos. Like, is it it's more, you remember what people say, but it's more about how they make you feel and the strength that we give to each other. Like, I'm gonna inspire people here to rise for sure. That's the purpose why I'm here. If you don't get inspired by my message that I give here, I don't know, you must not give attention or something. You don't pay attention. But if
Yeah.
everyone pays attention to what I'm saying here, it's very easy to overstand that I want us to rise and shine. I think it's clear.
It's clear. um
So, next
that,
thing. Yeah,
okay,
go ahead. Go ahead. You
I was
wanted to say
just
something?
moved by what you said about Santos, and I'm
Yeah, go
thinking
ahead.
about how that means, I mean, that's the mark of an authentic teacher,
Yeah,
right? It's like what I was saying, that like there was so much more going on than the actual words, and that's what you're saying too, you
yeah,
know to and to say, we've got the team here, and let's give a little to this one and get this one up, and then get, it's
yeah.
like, yeah, it's the way it
Because
goes. So
we have to carry that. Our mission is to carry the truth. That's for sure. This is what we are. So I have a sense of mission, a deep sense of mission here. If I could carry the world on my shoulder, I would. I know it's impossible, but I try to. I try hard every time I come here to really lift us all up and bring us all. A real leader will not force you on a journey. He will invite you on. And this is what I'm doing here. I'm inviting you to rise and shine, to change this world, to change our vibration, to change our ways. And Santos gave me a lot of strength to do that. Santos, that's what every time I get with Santos, it's more strength. It's like it's even come on. I haven't been on YouTube all my life. I'm not. I might be a YouTuber now, but I wasn't before. So it's very, very uplifting for me to get online with Santos Bonacci. Come on, I've been looking to all his studies, all his videos, and suddenly, whoops, I'm
right.
live with Santos on YouTube. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? A shift is happening. So this is what Santos gave me, a lot of strength and courage. But courage is my only fear. I have no more fear now, but I get nervous sometimes. Like even the other day before doing my live show alone, I get nervous still a little bit, and it's normal. It's okay. That means you're about to do something brave. If you get scared or nervous, or you're about, and when I come live alone, come on, I'm on the spot. It's like I put myself really in an uncomfortable situation, and these great teachers have taught me this to go with the uncomfortable. So yeah, I'm gonna keep going for sure. I'm gonna keep on rising and shining for sure. As
Thanks,
one.
B.
The other thing you talk about, and very, very uplifting and very interesting, is the phase conjugated birth chart,
Mm-hmm.
or something you present us, something
Yeah.
you've done that yourself.
Yeah, I turned it around with Photoshop. Yeah. And it's interesting because even since I did that presentation, I've been thinking about it some more, right? And so it's not like we have one chart and one chart. It's like Santos did this motion, right? And it's like we have, that's how energy moves. It moves in both directions at one time. But what I think is interesting is that the one that's moving out is moving a little bit faster. Like it's the heavy, and that's the one that we're not as aware of. However, when I started thinking about my own birth chart and kind of like I think I could say it delineate. I can't. I learned from books. I learned everything from books, so I say things wrong, because I read it myself instead of here. I didn't learn from a teacher. So except for Santos, who has been so great for helping me to learn. But so when I did that, like I noticed like it's things I already know, like I already sort of know that I do that. Of course, like I'm pretty in tune with my process, but like, yeah, it's interesting. But I do think that it can, to do that phase conjugated birth chart for people and to translate that will be helpful and for people to understand sort of more how that energy is reaching backwards, sort of the reaching back to spirit as opposed to how we externalize, right? It's more how we internalize,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's more like we internalize, like you say, because everything goes internal at one point, even your journey. So
Yeah. I mean, like I could fill it out just a little bit because I did write something about it just because like I felt like I hadn't done it so much. But like, like for instance, like I have a third house sun, right? And this is what I say in the presentation. So what that means is that like the way that I contextualize and like my vitality is linked to the way that I imaginatively contextualize the universe, right? And so that's in the external sense. But reaching backwards, my vitality is intimately linked to the imaginative way that I raise the Merkaba vehicle, or the imaginative way that I relate with esoteric teachings and like cultivate the skillful means to ascend. So I do that in an imaginative way, looking through that window of my heart. And that's linked to my vitality going backwards. So I'm doing both of those at the same time. However, like I see that I'm definitely doing one a little heavier, reaching backwards, imaginatively thinking about what can I do to cultivate my prowess so that I can do what I came here to do, right? I definitely do that more heavy than I am contextualizing the external reality imaginatively or fantasifully or whatever I do. But not everybody, a lot of people, not the viewers here probably, but there are a lot of people caught in just this external. In fact, maybe they don't even realize they're doing the external birth chart because they don't even know about that, right? And so there's wisdom to be gained here. And in the Tibetan sense, they call it pith instruction, right? When you're able to tap into something that's pithy. Pithy is a good word. It gives me a good feeling because I'm like, this is important, right? And it's just like that. It's just that instruction about how to wake ourselves up. It's like potent instruction. And I do believe that with study and like developing this method, that there might be something here. It's very much related to Jeffrey Wolf Green. And like I've heard he just had a bunch of dreams about his method too. And like that's how Jeffrey Wolf Green came up with evolutionary astrology. But then at the same time, it is outside of traditional astrology. So, you're going to have your people that are like, oh my gosh, this makes no sense. This is nothing, right? But it's not debunking traditional astrology because it's still saying we have the external wave. It's only saying that there's a mirror reflection as well, and that there might be something there, take it or leave it. I intend to research it more in case there's something there. And it's coming from Santos, from this book and from the work, but it's definitely probably an original thing. I wouldn't say that he would back it. It's just, this is what I heard.
But it would be interesting to bring it up to him. He's going to be back sometime in June, like I said. So we will bring it to him and see what he says about it.
And
for sure.
What's funny is it may be something like Nassim Haramein, you know, where like if we were sitting and having tea, he might be like, yeah, there might be something there. But to actually back it in real life might be like, you know, I'm just
That's a
kidding. But I'm
that's a
just
whole
kidding.
other
But
thing to
yeah,
back it up. But he might say, yeah, there's something there. That's it.
it's funny,
Yeah.
right?
Now, oh yeah, oh yeah, at the end of your presentation, you give an like a few recognition, and
Uh-huh.
you put Jason in there. And I
Yeah.
really like that you name Jason, because that's someone I want to recommend to everybody also here listening. Go check the album of Jason on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. You can find a lot of songs on YouTube also from Jason. Listen to his stuff. He's very, very inspiring. I think he inspired you a lot at one
Oh
point,
yeah,
eh?
I'm singing those songs all the time. You know, I definitely really love those songs. Yeah, for sure. That album's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, and he's so cute, like him and his little. That's got to be his wife dancing on the beach. Like, I mean, I just guess, but it just seems so intimate and really great energy. Like
Yeah,
watching them
he's
dance on
from
the beach while they do the video, and it's very lifted.
yeah, very uplifted, and he's from California, so it's
Okay,
he's not that far so from you. So
that's true.
maybe you can see him even in concert one day. But yeah, he's very.
That
I
would be
was gonna
fun.
have him on the Tru-Mon show. He's gonna be on the Tru-Mon show. I say, give me a month and a half again. I'm gonna send my my poll again, and I'm gonna try again, because I've tried in the past, but he must be very busy. Just put out a new album too. So we were communicating at one point. We had a good chat, but he got busy onto something. So we will see him on the Tru-Mon show eventually. I'm always working on having people on the Tru-Mon show, but I just don't want to have people just to say I have people and we come and talk. No, I want to connect with people on a deep spiritual level, and that's it. So we can have a good show, a good vibe. You know, my vibe has to match with people. I'm not going to do shows with people that don't
Right.
match my vibe. So that's for sure. It's a normal thing. But I'm not separating myself with that anyway. Like, it's just my tribe attract my vibe attract my tribe. It's normal. It's a
Totally.
normal thing. Attraction. That's what it's called. You know,
I wanted
laws of
to.
attraction.
Yeah, I use that. I use visualizations all the time. Like I have working visualization that I use to try to like get my thing going. I wanted
Oh,
to talk about one more thing, just because it was something that I listened to and heard after. You know, there was a question I was asking you, and I think I asked Santos in on the Tru-Mon show about how we would look at, you know, this is so interesting with the one chart. Well, how would it look when we have more than one chart going on? We have a natal chart, we have a progress chart, we have a solar eclipse chart, we have a full moon chart, we have like all these charts at once. Like, how are you thinking about that? And he talked about the chord, right? He talked about the string, and about how in any tone that you have overtones and undertones that are all part of the same tone, right? Well, Dan Winter also talks about this, and he taught, and I didn't get it until that presentation was huge anyway, and I haven't fully understood it, but he's talking about how like DNA, like how we have different chords, right? And it's kind of like you have one string, two strings, three strings, and you twist those together, and then you braid those, and then you braid those, and then you get this big chord of DNA, right? And so it's much like that. And what he's saying is that at any point, like it depends on the way the twist is, what part of your DNA is coming out, right? You might have a mutation in there that would come out, you know, at a certain point in life, or not, depending on the twist, right? And I think it's working the same way with birth charts, right? And with the charts that we have going at any one time. They're all in there and they're braided together. And, you know, we can get to the point where one of them can be sort of like it's sort of like a receptor, you know, like in your brain, where like they talk about how something settles on the receptor and then it's full, right? And it's not acting out anymore. Like, I sort of have this theory that we can get to the point where we've sort of transmutated some of the potentials of our birth charts, so that, you know, like it's not acting out anymore and it's more twisted in there, or, you know. And so it's just interesting. And then also just like one on layered on top of the other would, you know, creates different things that we're seeing twist out in our reality, you know.
Yeah, and
So
apparently you can take your DNA, like air or something, and you send it to a company in UK, and
yeah,
they can read your old DNA and then send you a reading about that. And
yeah,
I
I've
don't
had
know if
that
it's
done,
really
sadly.
accurate and stuff, but it would be interesting to try. But I don't know if the whole thing would really like it, like you read astrology a certain way. Like you can
Mhm.
probably read your DNA a certain way too. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely can because like, it's genetic science and I have actually had that done where they do your blood test and look for a mutation. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, knowing that you have the mutation is really interesting because at any point like a gene could break and then you start to produce it it starts to show up. But it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do birth chart reading?
I do. I do.
Or
I do. And I have a website. It's room432a.com. And all of my readings are by donation. So if you go and you check out a reading and then it's going to it'll kick your cart to zero when you check out because I feel very strongly that people need equitable access to spiritual information and I've been a person who hasn't had that. That's why I'm so grateful to be able to connect with Santos Bonacci and have him offer teachings to me because even just indirectly like not informally like we have because I get everything from books and you learn so much more when you're able to connect with the teacher, but lots of things are hung in fancy retreat fees. And so I like to offer equitable access, but at the same time, I'm extremely busy. Like right now there's a lot of fire. I don't know about you, but I can't even get to all my email, because like I've just got so many ideas and things I'm trying to like get out the door and work on. So, and I work, I work at a
that's
tire
it.
place like for a lot of hours. So, um, yeah, I look forward to the day that I can transition to doing birth charts and readings as my job and offering sound healing meditations. And that's my goal this summer is that I'm going to get to the place where by the end, at least by the time school starts, hopefully, but definitely by December when Saturn comes into Capricorn, I'm going to be in a position where I'm offering birth chart readings full time and also have worked out this healing modality with sound. That's my plan because
So
I want to be able to offer my mom something that she is tangible, like if her leg or your muscle hurting, like I want to be able to say, not give you this abstract theory about how it twists and twists and this. I want to be able to say, boom, here's this frequency, put it in your body and it will heal you. Like, yeah,
yeah.
that's my hope.
And where can we find out more? Like you have a YouTube channel, but also you say you have a website. What's your website again?
It's room432a.com.
Great.
ROOM 432A. Yeah. And
And
that's a frequency. Yeah.
what room 42A stands for again? You said it before, I remember, but
Yeah.
just for the
Yeah.
benefit of people.
Like Carl Jung talks about the psyche as a room, like you are a house, right? Like in dream work, our psyche is represented as a house, right? And so a room in the house would be like different parts of your psyche, right? So this is room 432a.com and it's the frequency of the, it's a note.
Wow.
So 432a is the frequency. So it's
Wow.
interesting how it all comes together, right? Because when I came up with that name, I wasn't thinking in sound healing or anything like that. The only thing I had was that hysteresis dream, and I'm just going from that. So
Wow, very
yeah.
interesting. Lily, thank you very much for
Aw.
coming tonight and do that presentation and exchange also with us on the presentation, which was the goal of bringing you on the Tru-Mon show tonight. But yeah, it's a great honor for me always to hang out with such great and beautiful and wonderful people like you with great souls, with great teaching to give. You don't just come here to no, you have something to teach and you're very, very smart. And we can all sense that. Everybody in the chat was saying, wow, Lily's smart, Lily's smart. Yannick, where do you find those people? They're so smart. I'm like, I
Aw.
don't know. It's divine vibrations at work. It's bringing us together. Lily, I don't remember even where I think you checked the Tru-Mon show or something. And it's all bringing us together. It's the divine at work. And we're just letting the love flow. That's all we do.
your vibe attracts your tribe, and that's the same for everybody that I've met, all your viewers and people I've interacted with and friends that I've made since I've been here. And you know what? I asked Spirit for you the day or two before I hooked up with you. I put a plea out to Spirit to send me people to connect with in the heart space and to share and collaborate with as friends, you know. And so many have come in from this connection, and I mean that so truly. So thank you so much for the connection, for your
No,
friendship.
we are. I think I see a lot of connection developing in between people. It's not me. I don't give myself or anything, but through the Tru-Mon show, I see a lot of people like still working together, like either in music or astrology or all kinds of stuff that people are
Nice.
connecting. And you know, that's what I want. That's what I say all the time. Together as one. We are one. Let's make it. Let's get together and make it work.
Yeah.
That's what we need. So big
Awesome.
up Lily again, and big up yourself, everyone in the chat. Big up Randy, David, Caroline.
Oh,
There's so many
Carolyn, hey.
people. Life under the microscope. It's full. The chat is full
See,
of
I
love.
can't
It's
see them, but hi, everybody.
yeah, no, and there was a lot of viewers live at 1.25, and I know there's everybody it's full of love. Me, I'm impressed because there's like it's a channel where it seems to boom in love. Boom
Yeah.
in love. That's what we're doing. So that's great, people. You're all such wonderful people. So you know what? Stay away from Babylon evil. That's the best thing you can do. We're out. Thank you
Bye,
very much,
guys.
Lily, again. And I see you
Love you
again
guys.
next time. We're going to do another one. We're going to bring you other stuff. And that's it. Rise and shine. Don't
Nice.
forget. Rise like the sun. Rise, shine like the sun. That's it. We're out.
Bye.
Big up yourself.